Welcome back to DartBrain, the podcast where, just like a good darts coach, we exist to keep you from driving straight into a lake because your chimp brain thought it knew a shortcut. Now, imagine you're setting off on a long drive with only a vague idea of where you're going. No GPS, no map, maybe just a scribbled note that says head east. At first, it feels fine. You're moving, the road is open, and you're convinced you're making progress. But then you miss a turn, then another. Before long, you're circling the same back roads, wondering why the gas gauge is dipping towards empty, and eventually you're staring at a cow pasture thinking, this can't be right. That's darts without coaching. You might reach your destination eventually, but you're going to waste a lot of time, burn a lot of fuel, and possibly get chased by livestock along the way. And speaking of directions, here's a little coaching tip for you right now. Don't miss a turn with this podcast. If you haven't already, hit subscribe wherever you're listening. That way, you won't get lost, miss an episode, or find yourself phoning Shane for directions. Trust me, nobody wants that. His best advice so far has been, just follow the smell of deep-fried pickles. Coaching in darts is funny because unlike sports like golf or tennis, most players start out with zero formal guidance. There's no coach pacing the hockey with a whistle, no clipboard with training drills, no assistant setting up cones for you to hit. For a lot of us, coaching started in the pub. A friend leaning over saying, nah, hold your elbow a little bit higher. Or the old regular who's really only ever played a few games of 501, but somehow has advice on your grip, stance, and diet. And sometimes that advice was awful. But sometimes, just sometimes, it was gold. That's the beauty of darts coaching. It comes in all shapes and sizes. It's formal when you're working with a mentor or academy. It's informal when you pick up a tip from a fellow player. And it's psychological when someone helps you tame the chimp and let the professor brain take the wheel. Sports psychology research has long shown that feedback accelerates learning. Anders Ericsson, the guy behind the 10,000 hours of practice idea, emphasized that it's not just hours that make the difference, it's deliberate practice, which we talked about in a previous episode. That means having feedback loops, correction, and reflection. A coach provides exactly that. They notice the things you don't, because your brain is too busy stressing about doubles or replaying that time you missed a 32 checkout in front of your entire dart league. Coaching isn't just about mechanics either. In fact, most of the time, it's about psychology. A good coach doesn't just say, lift your elbow. They say, I believe in you. You can do this. And suddenly your focus expands, your shoulders drop, and the bullseye looks twice as big. Coaching protects you from gremlins like self-doubt, pessimism, and negative self-talk. In the DartBrain model, a coach is like a hired guardian for your mental game. Think about it. Even Phil Taylor, the most dominant player in darts history, didn't just emerge from the womb hitting 9 dart finishes. He had mentors, he had practice partners, he had people telling him when his throw looked off. Coaching is the hidden scaffolding of greatness. You don't always see it, but it holds up the whole structure. Now, let's bring it back to psychology. One of the most fascinating things about coaching is how it harnesses what psychologists call social learning theory. The idea that we learn by observing others. Albert Bandura's famous Bobo doll experiment showed that kids didn't just mimic behavior, they internalized it. In darts, the same thing happens. Watch a pro player set up on 164, and your brain starts wiring itself to imagine those sequences. Watch your practice partner stay calm under pressure, and you're more likely to stay calm too. That's coaching in disguise. And here's the best part. You don't need a paid coach to benefit from coaching. Top players love helping grassroots players. Ask a question at a local event, and 9 times out of 10, they'll share a nugget of wisdom. Sometimes the best coaching you'll ever get is a 5-second tip from someone who's been there before. But there's a warning here too. Left unchecked, the chimp brain loves bad coaching. It latches onto shortcuts, myths, and superstitions. You've probably heard them before. Always aim lower on stage because the lights pull up the dart. Nonsense. Or, if you miss 2 triple 20s, you must go bull. Maybe in cricket, but not in 501. A coach, a good coach, helps filter out the garbage so you can focus on what really works. So today, we're going to explore the many faces of coaching in darts. We'll look at why coaching matters, not just for your throw, but for your confidence and focus. We'll talk about the difference between formal coaching, like academies and mentors, and informal coaching, like the wisdom you pick up from rivals and teammates. And we'll dive into the psychology of why coaching works, how it builds resilience, and why sometimes the smallest bit of advice can unlock the biggest improvements. Because in the end, darts is a lonely game. It's you, the board, and the chimp in your head. But you don't have to walk the path alone. Coaching, in whatever form it comes, is the compass that helps you find your way from grassroots to glory. Part 1. Why coaching matters in darts. If you've been around darts long enough, you've probably heard this line. It's just throwing sharp sticks at a circle. How hard can it be? And sure, on the surface, darts look simple. But the truth is, once you get past the first few months of hurling tungsten at random parts of the wall and celebrating when you don't break a picture frame, you start realizing how deep this game actually goes. The margins are razor thin. A single millimeter off at the Oki is the difference between a 180 and a 45. And that's where coaching steps in, because those margins aren't just physical, they're psychological. If you hang around darts long enough, you'll notice something. Every player hits a wall. Sometimes it's early, like when you've just figured out how to keep your darts on the board and suddenly realize you can't hit a double to save your life. Other times it's later, when you've climbed your way into competition but find yourself losing by a dart or two over and over. No matter how much you practice, the breakthrough doesn't come. That's where coaching comes in. Coaching matters in darts for the same reason it matters in any skill-based sport. It's the difference between wandering around in the dark and flicking on the light switch. Left on your own, you might eventually stumble into improvement, but a coach accelerates that process, keeps you from ingraining bad habits, and, maybe most importantly, protects you from your own chimp brain. Coaching is a mirror you can't hold up yourself. One of the biggest reasons coaching matters is that you can't always see what you're doing wrong. The brain lies. It tells you your stance is fine, your rhythm is smooth, your release is perfect, while your darts are busy clustering in triple ones. Coaching is essentially an external mirror, someone who can look at your throw and say, yeah, your arm's doing the Macarena every time you aim. Sports psychology research backs this up. Studies on attentional focus show that athletes often misjudge their own mechanics. We're biased by what feels right, not what is right. A coach disrupts that bias by offering perspective. They say things like, try shifting your foot angle a few extra degrees, and suddenly your grouping tightens. They help recalibrate the professor brain when the chimp is insisting, nah, it's fine, keep doing that, it's clearly gonna work. One of the simplest reasons coaching matters is this: you can't see yourself clearly. What feels right in your throw often isn't. Sports psychology calls this a perception-action gap. The brain thinks you're replicating the same movement, but tiny variations creep in. Coach spots the drift in your stance, the rush in your rhythm, and the way your grip changes under pressure. Without coaching, you rely on trial and error, which often leads to frustration or plateaus. With coaching, you get a feedback loop. Someone says, you're not broken, you're just consistent in the wrong way. Let's tweak it. That reframing is pure psychology. It shifts the mind from identity, I'm terrible, to process, I need an adjustment. Coaching builds confidence, your most powerful guardian. In the DartBrain model, confidence is the most powerful guardian. It expands focus, keeps you calm, and lets you enter the zone. A coach is like an external battery pack for confidence. When your self-belief flickers, they plug you back in. Think about it. When you're alone at practice and miss a dozen doubles in a row, it's easy for the self-doubt gremlin to start whispering, see, you'll never hit this under pressure. But when the coach is there, they reframe it. Good. You're missing consistently on the inside. That's a small tweak, not a catastrophe. Suddenly, what felt like failure feels like progress. This isn't just feel-good talk either. Research on self-efficacy shows that feedback from a trusted source directly increases your belief in your ability to succeed. That belief then changes your actual performance. In other words, coaching doesn't just teach, it transforms how you see yourself. Coaching also creates accountability. Left on your own, we all cut corners. You say you'll practice for 2 hours, but then you stop after 45 minutes because YouTube whispered your name. You swear you'll work on doubles, you end up chasing 180s for the dopamine hit. A coach, whether formal or informal, adds accountability. Knowing someone's going to ask, did you do the routine, makes it harder to slack or do something else. Accountability shifts darts practice from whenever I feel like it to I owe it to someone else. And psychology tells us that external accountability is far more effective at sustaining habits than relying on pure willpower. Stress management and tilt prevention. Another reason coaching matters in darts is emotional regulation. Without a coach, it's easy to spiral after missing a double or a bad leg. You mutter, you stew, you drag the frustration into the next throw. With a coach, you get reminders to breathe, reset, and stay present. Studies show athletes with coaching have lower cortisol spikes under stress. They return to baseline faster, and their performance under pressure stays closer to practice levels. That's gold in darts, where the margin between winning and losing is often one dart at a double. Coaching isn't always mechanical. In darts, coaching often isn't about mechanics at all. Sure, a coach might adjust your stance or suggest a grip change, but a huge part of their role is mental regulation. They're the ones who remind you to breathe, to reset between throws, to keep routines consistent. Elite athletes often say their coaches are more like psychologists than technicians. In fact, in sports psychology literature, coaching is framed as a partnership. The coach doesn't just give orders, they help the athlete manage emotions, focus, and confidence. In darts, that's crucial because no amount of elbow adjustments can stop the chimp from taking the wheel if your mind goes on tilt. Why darts especially needs coaching. Darts players are stubborn creatures. A lot of us learned in pubs or garages, developed quirky habits, and then doubled down on them. Some of those quirks become superpowers. Others become gremlins in disguise. Without coaching, it's easy to get stuck in plateaus, practicing hard but not improving. Coaching breaks plateaus by introducing new perspectives and deliberate practice. Remember Anders Ericsson's research? He found that just putting in hours doesn't lead to expertise. It's about targeted practice with feedback. A coach pushes you out of the comfort zone, designs drills for weaknesses, and keeps you progressing when you'd otherwise stagnate. Breaking plateaus. Here's a challenge every dart player eventually faces. You plateau. No matter how many hours you practice, your averages don't rise. That's because the human brain loves routine, even when it stops working. Without a coach, you grind the same habits deeper. With a coach, you can break the cycle. Sports psychology research on deliberate practice shows that expertise isn't about hours logged. It's about purposeful, feedback-driven practice aimed at weaknesses. A coach drags you out of your comfort zones, making you work on finishes instead of hammering the triple 20 or designing drills that replicate match pressure. Of course, not all coaching is good coaching. Anyone who's been in a darts pub has heard gems like, just relax your wrist and aim higher, works every time. Translation, you'll now spray your darts like a lawn sprinkler. You've got to stand sideways like Phil Taylor. Never mind that your body shape is nothing like Phil Taylor's. Always go bull if you miss 2 triples. Yeah, thanks, but no thanks. Bad coaching is everywhere, but even bad coaching serves a purpose. It makes you question, test, and refine. Sometimes the value of coaching isn't the advice itself, but the act of having someone care enough to give it. Coaching as a mental GPS. Let's bring it back to our driving analogy. Coaching is your GPS. Without it, you might get there eventually, but you'll waste time, energy, and sanity. With it, you get real-time course corrections. You still do the driving, you still hold the darts, but the path is clearer, smoother, and way less likely to end up with you staring at ghosts. Coaching matters in darts not because you can't figure things out alone, but because you can't see yourself clearly when you're in the game. A coach provides perspective, confidence, accountability, and psychological regulation. They're not teaching you how to throw darts. They're helping you train your dart brain. Part 2. Formal versus informal coaching. When people hear the word coaching, they often imagine something very formal. Maybe a guy in a tracksuit pacing the sideline with a whistle, yelling things like, "Eyes on the ball, Johnson!" Or a golf pro with a clipboard, breaking down your swing angle with military precision. But darts is different. Our coaching culture is more, let's say, creative. In darts, coaching comes in 2 flavors, the formal and the informal. Formal coaching, the structured path. Formal coaching is what you'd expect in other sports, a designated coach, an academy, or a program where feedback is consistent, progress is tracked, and psychology is baked into the plan. At its best, formal coaching is systematic. It's about deliberate practice, drills to isolate doubles, routines to strengthen scoring, and feedback loops to tighten mechanics. It's like going to the gym with a personal trainer. You don't just wander around and occasionally touch a dumbbell. Someone designs a program to build you up step by step. You're not just training your throw, you're strengthening resilience, confidence, and focus. A good darts coach knows that fixing mechanics without fixing mindset is like tuning a car engine while ignoring the fact that the driver is asleep at the wheel. Sports psychology research shows that formal coaching creates what's called external scaffolding. It helps you manage complexity by breaking goals into chunks. Instead of thinking, I need to be a world champion, a coach reframes it. This week, we're working on first dart triple accuracy. Next week, we'll layer in doubles. That scaffolding prevents overwhelm and makes the path to mastery feel achievable. And formal coaching isn't just for kids. Adults benefit massively too. You don't age out of needing perspective. In fact, older players often carry decades of habits that only a coach can help unravel. Informal coaching, the pub school of wisdom. Now, let's flip the board. Informal coaching is the pub player who leans over and says, try shifting your stance. It's your practice partner who notices you always rush your third dart. It's a rival who, after beating you 4-0, says, you drop your elbow under pressure. Fix that and you might beat me next time. And informal coaching matters a lot because most darts players didn't grow up with academies or structured systems. We grew up in pubs, garages, and basements. Informal coaching is the cultural backbone of darts. Sports psychology has a name for this. It's called peer learning. Humans don't just learn from designated teachers. We learn socially by trading tips, watching each other, and modeling behavior. That's why so many great players talk about learning more from friends and rivals than from formal lessons. And here's where mirror neurons sneak in. Neuroscience shows that when you watch someone throw a dart, your brain activates many of the same pathways as if you were throwing it. This means that even when a friend demonstrates something casually, your brain is already practicing it. Informal coaching taps into that natural wiring. The strengths and weaknesses of each. Formal coaching gives you structure, accountability, and precision. Informal coaching gives you community, flexibility, and lived experience. But both have blind spots, too. Formal coaching can become rigid, over-analytical, or expensive. Informal coaching can spread myths, always aim lower on stage, and sometimes contradict itself. Stand sideways like Taylor versus square up like Anderson. But here's the beauty. Darts players don't need to choose one or the other. The best approach is a blend. Get the structure of formal coaching, then supplement with insights of peers. Or lean on your local community and fill gaps with occasional professional guidance. Why this matters in psychology. From a sports psychology perspective, coaching, whether formal or informal, works because it builds feedback loops. And feedback is the foundation of growth. Without it, you're just repeating mistakes. With it, you're correcting course. Research also highlights attribution theory, the way we explain our successes and failures. Coaches, formal or informal, help shape those explanations. Alone, you might miss a double and say, I'm terrible at this, I'll never improve. A coach reframes, you missed inside. That means your grouping is consistent. That's progress. Suddenly your narrative shifts from hopelessness to growth. That mental shift is priceless. Humor, the Pub Coach Hall of Fame. Informal coaching also provides some of the funniest moments in darts, like the guy who insists you should practice with 3 different sets of darts at once because it makes you adaptable, or the uncle who swears he could have gone pro if only his bad knee hadn't held him back, while he's teaching you to aim with your chin. But behind the humor, there's a kernel of truth. Informal coaching often sticks because it's relatable, memorable, and delivered in the heat of real games. It might not always be scientifically sound, but it sparks experimentation, and experimentation drives learning. The podcast as a coach. This podcast is like a coach tucked into your earbuds. Not the kind that makes you run laps, but the kind that nudges your thinking, reframes your self-talk, and maybe slips in the odd reminder to not let the monkey drive the bus. Think of DartBrain as informal coaching at scale. Each episode is a tip, a reframing, a new way of seeing the mental side of darts. You may never meet me in person, but if this show helps you reset your focus, try a new routine, or stop your chimp brain from panicking at double 16, then you're already acting like your own coach. But here's where it gets even better. It's not just me coaching you. Our DartBrain Facebook group is a space where players from all levels can share their own coaching nuggets. One player posts a routine that helps them calm nerves. Another shares how they overcome self-doubt after a brutal losing streak. That's informal coaching in action, a community of players acting as each other's guardians, offering encouragement, strategies, and the occasional laugh when someone admits their lucky shirt hasn't worked since 2018. So if you don't have access to formal coaching, that's okay. Between your pub mates, your practice partners, the voice of DartBrain in your head, and the hive mind of our Facebook community, you've already got a coaching network building around you. Part 3. Coaching in sports psychology terms. All right, here's where we pull on the lab coats over our dart shirts and get a little sciencey. But don't panic. We're not turning DartBrain into a TED Talk with graphs and laser pointers. This is still darts. And if darts has taught us anything, it's that you can explain the most complex psychology concepts using beer mats and a mate named Shane who still thinks 301 is the real game. Coaching as a guardian against gremlins. In the DartBrain model, coaching is like hiring a personal bodyguard for your mental game. You've got gremlins trying to collapse your focus, self-doubt, negative self-talk, pessimism. A coach shows up like a bouncer outside your brain saying, "Not today, fellas." Sports psychology calls this cognitive reappraisal, reframing how you interpret a situation. You miss 3 doubles on your own, the self-doubt gremlin crackles, "You'll never hit one again." With a coach, they calmly say, "You're grouping inside, that means we're just one adjustment away." And suddenly, the chimp brain that was about to drive the bus into a ditch just quietly puts on its seatbelt instead. Coaching as attentional control. Research shows that athletes shift between broad, narrow, and internal-external focuses. In darts, the chimp brain loves dragging your attention everywhere it shouldn't be: the scoreboard, your opponent's sigh, the guy in the third row who looks suspiciously like your ex's new partner. A coach helps yank your attention back to where it matters. They don't just say focus, they give you something specific. Pick your target, soft eyes, breathe. That redirection is everything. It's like when Shane's cooking on the barbecue and almost sets his eyebrows on fire. You don't just yell, "Be careful!" You say, "Shane, maybe don't pour so much lighter fluid directly onto the coals." Coaching saves eyebrows. Coaching is scaffolding. Educational psychology uses the term scaffolding, breaking down big, complex tasks into manageable steps. Coaches are scaffolding experts. Without a coach, you might set a goal: "I want to be a pro." Sounds good, but your chimp brain immediately panics. "You can't even hit double 10 after 3 pints. How are you going to beat Michael Van Gerwen?" A coach scaffolds that goal. All right, step 1. Let's raise your first dart average by 5 points. Step 2. Let's build a pre-throw routine. Step 3. Let's work on emotional regulation under pressure. Suddenly, the Everest of darts looks more like a staircase. Still steep, but climbable. And unlike Shane's homemade scaffolding project, this one doesn't collapse after 2 minutes and leave everyone in the hospital. Coaching and self-determination theory. Now let's sprinkle in a big academic term: self-determination theory. Basically, it says humans need 3 things for motivation: autonomy, feeling in control; competence, feeling skilled; and relatedness, feeling connected. Good coaching nails all 3. First, autonomy. They let you make choices so you feel in control. 2, competence. They build your skills so you feel capable. And relatedness. They support you so you don't feel alone on the hockey. It's why so many players describe their coach as more than a teacher. They're part cheerleader, part psychologist, part drinking buddy. Coaching as emotional regulation. One of the coach's most underrated roles is helping with emotional regulation. On your own, it's easy to spiral. You miss a big finish, and the chimp brain is already drafting your retirement speech. A coach cuts in. Breathe, next leg, reset. Research shows athletes with coaching regulate stress hormones more effectively. Their cortisol spikes are lower, and they return to baseline quicker. In darts language, with a coach, you don't carry the last leg into the next one. Without one, you're still muttering about that missed 36 when your opponent's already halfway to a 15-darter. Of course, coaching can backfire if done badly. Bad coaching can be a lot worse than no coaching. It's like when Shane tried to teach his nephew darts by telling him to throw harder and aim later. The kid nearly put a hole in the drywall, and Shane insists it was good form. Sports psychology even has a term for this: misattribution of feedback. If the feedback is wrong, the brain encodes it anyway, and now you're practicing mistakes. That's why it matters who you listen to. Pro tip: if your coach can't finish a leg of 301 in under an hour, maybe don't take their advice. Coaching as a performance buffer. Studies show that athletes with coaching perform closer to their practice baseline under stress. Why? Because a coach reduces cognitive load. They help simplify decisions, reframe nerves, and remind you of routines. Think of it like this. Without a coach, pressure builds like carbonation in a shaken soda can. Pop the lid and chaos sprays everywhere. With a coach, it's like someone tapped the can gently, released the fizz, and handed it back chilled. You still feel the pressure, but it's under control. Coaching isn't optional, it's a multiplier. So why does coaching matter in darts? Because darts isn't just a physical game. It's psychological chess at 7'9¼ inches. And while talent, grit, and hours of practice will get you far, coaching multiplies all of it. It keeps you accountable, keeps you confident, keeps you resilient, and gives you tools to handle the mental side of the game that no amount of lonely board bashing can teach. The truth is, even if you're not chasing trophies, coaching matters. Whether it's a mentor, a teammate, or even an informal conversation in a darts Facebook group, coaching makes the game more enjoyable, less frustrating, and way more rewarding. Darts is already hard enough. You don't need to fight your chimp alone. Coaching, in whatever form you find it, gives you a partner in the fight. In sports psychology terms, coaching is a guardian against gremlins through reframing, a director of attentional focus, a scaffolder of goals, a fulfiller of motivational needs, an emotional regulator, and, most importantly, a buffer against pressure. Part 4. Peer coaching and grassroots wisdom. Here's one of the things that makes darts unique compared to almost every other sport. The best players in the world are often the most approachable. Try getting tips from Serena Williams mid-match or asking Tiger Woods if he'll show you his putting grip. Not happening. But walk up to a pro darts event, and if you ask politely, there's a good chance they'll share a little nugget that changes your game forever. That's grassroots wisdom. It's peer coaching, and it's been the backbone of darts for decades. The pub is the first academy. Most of us didn't start darts with academies, structured drills, or mental coaches. We started in pubs, basements, and garages. Our first coaches were teammates and drinking buddies. Sometimes they were right. Don't rush your third dart. Sometimes they were wrong. Always aim for triple 19 if you're behind. It's luckier. But either way, those moments mattered. The wisdom of rivals. One of the strangest truths in darts is that your rivals can be your best coaches. After all, they're the ones studying you closely. How many times have you lost a match only for your opponent to say you drop your elbow when you're under pressure? And they're absolutely right. That's pure coaching in action. It's humbling, but it's also invaluable. Sports psychology backs us up with the idea of feedback from competition. Rival feedback hits harder because it's real time and carries credibility. The person just beat you, and they may know why. Of course, it's also a little awkward when your rival is Shane, who beats you 2-1 in a local blind draw and then insists on giving an hour-and-a-half TED Talk about the importance of aiming for the fat part of the board. Thanks, Shane. Pros passing it on. One of the best parts of darts culture is how generous pros can be with grassroots players. There are stories abound of big names hanging back after matches to share advice. Sometimes it's mechanical, slow your rhythm. Sometimes it's mental, don't think ahead to the finish. And sometimes it's just encouragement. This isn't charity, it's culture. Darts has always been built on community, and sports psychology tells us that advice from role models carries huge weight. People don't just copy behaviors, they internalize them more deeply when the model is admired. So when a pro tells you, relax, you've got the talent, it sticks in a way your pub mate's pep talk just never will. Peer coaching in the digital age. Here's where DartBrain comes in. Today, peer coaching isn't just at the pub or the Oki, it's online. Our DartBrain Facebook group is a modern extension of grassroots coaching. It's a place where players swap routines, share breakthroughs, and admit struggles. One person posts about using imagery to stay calm at the Oki, another shares a focus drill, and suddenly dozens of players are informally coaching each other. This is powerful because of what psychology calls distributed cognition, the idea that knowledge spreads through communities. No single person has all the answers, but collectively, we get smarter. A player in Scotland posts a tip, a Canadian tries it out, and a week later, someone in Australia adapts it. That's peer coaching on a global scale. It's also a lot safer than asking Shane for advice in person because at least online you can scroll past his 800-word essay on why beer temperature directly affects dart trajectory. Why peer coaching works so well. From a psychological standpoint, peer coaching has 3 big advantages. 1, relatability. Advice feels more trustworthy when it comes from someone like you. 2, frequently. You get feedback more often in casual play than in occasional formal sessions like tournaments. And 3, shared struggles. When a peer says, "Yeah, I used to choke on 32 all the time," it normalizes the struggle. This matters because darts is such a lonely sport. Peer coaching reminds you that you're not alone. Everyone has gremlins, everyone misses, everyone tilts. That sense of shared humanity makes it easier to bounce back. Peer coaching and grassroots wisdom are the heartbeat of darts. From pub tips to rival insights to pros passing knowledge down, informal coaching fuels growth. And in today's world, digital communities like our Facebook group make that coaching accessible anywhere. Coaching doesn't always mean standing in a classroom with a clipboard. Sometimes it's a casual comment, a shared drill, or even a funny story that sticks with you. And in the end, those small moments, passed from player to player, can shape your dart brain as much as any formal lesson. Part 5, Tools and Takeaways. So far, we've talked about why coaching matters, the difference between formal and informal coaching, the psychology behind it, and how pros and peers share their wisdom. Now let's bring it home with something every player wants: practical tools you can use today. Whether you've got access to a mentor, you're flying solo, or you're just hoping Shane never offers you coaching again, these strategies will help bring coaching into your darts journey. Tool 1, self-coaching with the Dart Journal. You may not have a coach standing over your shoulder, but you can still coach yourself. One of the best ways? A Dart Journal. Track your practice sessions, what drills you did, how you scored, what felt good, what didn't. Reflect after matches. Not just the scores, but what you felt mentally. When did your chimp get loud? When did your professor step in? Look for patterns. Do you struggle scoring when it comes to setup shots or moving around the board? Do nerves creep in at 2-2 or when you blow a leg? Sports psychology calls this metacognition, thinking about your thinking. A journal externalizes that process, so you're not just reacting in the moment. And best of all, it's free. No clipboard required. No whistle blowing. Tool 2. Create a peer coaching pact. If you've got a practice partner, don't just throw mindlessly. Make each other coaches. Agree that you'll give each other one piece of feedback per session. Keep it constructive and specific. You're rushing your setup, not "you're terrible." Trade routines, set mini challenges, and hold each other accountable. Psychology calls this social accountability. You're far more likely to improve when you feel responsible not just to yourself, but to someone else. And peer coaching builds resilience because you know you're in the fight together. Tool 3. Join the DartBrain Facebook group. Yes, this is shameless, but it's also true. One of the easiest ways to access informal coaching is through our DartBrain community. Share what's working for you. Ask questions about routines, focus, or mental blocks. Read how others are handling gremlins like stress, self-doubt, or fatigue. This is distributed coaching. Dozens of minds sharing tips, all for free. All built around the DartBrain philosophy. Tool 4. Use video as your silent coach. Record your throw, just once, then watch it. You'll instantly see things you never noticed in the moment. A rushed rhythm, a foot that slides, a head tilt when pressure rises. Don't obsess over tiny mechanics. Look for obvious patterns. Compare how you throw in practice versus competition. Keep clips short and use them as reflection tools, not self-criticism sessions. This builds what sports psych calls external perspective. You literally step outside yourself, which reduces bias and makes learning faster. Tool 5. Build a coaching routine without a coach. If you don't have access to a formal coach, you can still design structure into your training. Start every session with a warm-up routine. Think free throws in basketball. Pick one focus goal per session: doubles, scoring, finishes. End with reflection. What worked? What didn't? What will you do next time? This turns random practice into deliberate practice, the secret sauce of improvement. Without structure, you're just throwing darts. With structure, you're training like an athlete. Tool 6. Adopt portable coaches. A portable coach is anything that gives you feedback or focus without needing a human standing there. Examples: your scoring apps that track averages and finishes, visual cues like a sticky note on your board that says breathe, reset, focus, mantras you repeat before throws: smooth, steady, release. These tools are like mini guardians, reminding you of the right mindset when gremlins try to sneak in. It's psychology in shorthand, prompts that rewire your focus in real time. Tool 7. Seek out micro mentors. Not every coach has to be permanent. Sometimes the best advice comes in 5-second conversations. Ask pros one question when you meet them. Watch league veterans and politely pick their brains. Don't be afraid to say, how do you handle nerves at 2-2? These are micro-coaching moments. They're small, but they stick. Sports psychology calls this vicarious learning, seeing how others handle challenges and adopting their strategies as your own. And tool 8, learn by teaching. Here's a sneaky coaching hack. Teach someone else. Mentor a new player. Share what you've learned with your team. Offer tips in the Facebook group. Why? Because when you teach, you consolidate your own learning. This is the protege effect. Explaining something to others forces you to understand it more deeply. That's what this podcast is doing for me right now. And it also builds relatedness, that all-important motivational pillar. Coaching isn't a luxury. It's everywhere if you know how to find it. And if you string these tools together, you'll have a coaching ecosystem. All right, let's hit the recap bullseye. Today, we dug into the coaching side of darts, not just whistles and clipboards, but the mental scaffolding that keeps your chimp from hijacking the bus. Here's what we covered. Why coaching matters. It's not a luxury, it's a multiplier. Coaching reveals blind spots, builds confidence, and keeps you accountable when YouTube looks more tempting than doubles practice. Formal versus informal coaching. From structured academies to pub tips, both matter. The sweet spot is blending the precision of formal coaching with the lived wisdom of peers. And hey, DartBrain itself can act as a coach, especially when you jump into the Facebook group and trade tips with other players. Coaching in sports psych terms. We broke it down like the nerds we are. Coaching as attentional control, emotional regulation, scaffolding, and motivation. In other words, it's the sciencey stuff that makes you more consistent, less tilted, and a lot less like Shane at the barbecue with lighter fluid. Peer coaching and grassroots wisdom. Darts culture thrives on passing it forward. Rivals, pros, teammates, they all become coaches in disguise. Tools and takeaways. Whether or not you've got a coach on speed dial, you can still build a coaching ecosystem. Keep a dart journal, create peer packs, use video, structure practice, find micro mentors, and share what you know. That's coaching in a nutshell. It's everywhere if you know how to listen. And speaking of listening, next week, we're flipping the mic to one of the best coaching minds in darts today, Alex Spellman. He's not just a top US player, he's also the driving force behind Anubis Academy, where he's helping grassroots players climb to elite levels. We'll dig into his philosophies, his routines, and yes, I'll ask him if he's ever tried coaching Shane. Spoiler alert, he hasn't, and that's probably why Alex is still sane. So until then, take a breath, trust your throw, and for the love of tungsten, don't let the monkey drive the bus. This has been DartBrain. I'm Clint Clarkson. Until next time, stay focused, throw with purpose, and train your DartBrain.